And it's really good to be here. I'm glad that Andrea was able to pop on for a second when I first reached out and I signed up to be a speaker here. And I wasn't sure when I would actually be on the island because something Simmone mentioned. I travel a lot. So I've been to over 103 countries. So I'm always traveling and I travel a whole lot. And I'm based in for the most part. But it's been really a journey. And so thank you so much for inviting me and for allowing me to be here. So today we're going to be talking about integrating environmental health and safety. So I am an environmentalist. I'm very passionate about environmental. And so yes, you will see lots of green in this presentation. At the end of it, you will probably love green just as much as I do. But I'm also heavy on the safety side and then project management. And that's what I really wanted to bring out. I tried to speak in different spaces about why environmental health and safety should be in those spaces. And project management is definitely an area where we should be working together. And so we're going to be talking about a lot of things tonight. So there's a lot to get through, and I'm going to try not to rush myself because I want to make sure we get to do some breakout sessions at the end and actually work through some of the techniques and get you thinking about things. Because one of the things I know is you can hear things, but until you actually put it into practice, it doesn't really stick as well. So we want to make sure we get to that. So we want to talk about the importance and consequences of not integrating environmental health and safety and project management, and then also look into why, what are the synergies between environmental health and safety and project management, and then risk management in projects and how you do that with regards to environmental health and safety. And then there are always some challenges, right? There are going to be challenges when you're trying to integrate the two. And how do you anticipate those and then work to overcome them? And then some of the tools and techniques that you can use in integration. And so you always want to see, you know, what are some of the best practices and what's happening that makes it work better, and then look at a case study where it's working well. And there are lots of examples. And then, like I said, I really want to see if we can get into a breakout session and exercise. So I wanted to start with a premise and being sure to let you guys know that I have always been an environmentalist and a safety and, you know, just a safety person at heart. So this is coming from the point of being an environmental specialist. And most of you in here are actually project managers. And so it's going to be very interesting, right? So I have always been environmental health and safety person. And so when I start working in project management spaces, I would actually buck with a lot of project managers because, as you can see, I'm very passionate about safety and environment, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I have, you know, and we've had those issues, right? I don't know, show of hands or reactions in the chat. How many of you as project managers have ever bumped heads with safety professionals? Any of you guys? On your job sites, etc. Don't be ashamed, it's okay. Or if you're a safety professional, if you're actually ever bumped with your project managers on projects. I'm sure there's some of you that have done that. But I know, exactly. So we could relate that sometimes there's a lot of conflict, but we want to talk about why it's important to have integration and kind of talk about the why. And so this is the only time I actually condone or support polygamy. And this is what we call the 5 wives and 1 husband, the 5 W's and 1 H is why it's important. Where does it kind of happen in the project management space? Like, do you do it at the beginning, in the middle, at the end? And just to preempt, you should do it at the beginning and all through. Unfortunately, a lot of times they try to bring in safety later and then it's a problem. Also the what are we trying to do? When, like we said, when do we do it? Where in the chain of command does it sit, and who is involved of it? And then of course the how is it all going to be done? And so that's kind of what we're going to be going through today. And if I go too fast, just let me know, because like I said, it's a lot for me to go through. So when you think about safety management and environmental safety, these are some of the words that may come, right?
Hi, Eustacia. Oh,
Okay, I'm back. I'm so sorry I jumped off. I small island living. Where did I stop off so I can start? Where did I lose you guys? I switched internet data.
Yeah, we were just talking about how you do your safety management planning, well, EH&S planning at the beginning of
Okay.
projects.
All right, great. Okay. Um, so let me go back. All right. So what I want you guys to, like I said, I wanted to make it a little interactive. So what comes to mind when you think about environmental health and safety? So especially for our project managers that are in the room who may not be as familiar with environmental health and safety. What are some of the things you can put them in the chat? Let's see if you have some of the same things that we have going on. Let me know. Don't all type at once. So when we're looking at environmental health and safety, what are some of the things that may come up in your projects? Make sure I'm not losing you guys again. All right, I'll wait. Ecosystem, yes, conservation. Thank you, Danielle. Yeah, so risk and so environment and ecosystem conservation. A lot of people are talking about climate change now, but a lot of times it's about chemical spills. I love that one, Lana. We talk about management systems and environmental health and safety too. And a lot of people may think that this is more towards like construction safety and everything, but I really want to highlight tonight, especially that it's all types of projects, especially because we have agile and scrum persons in here, and they don't necessarily deal with the type of projects that we may be used to when we think of project management, like construction sites or building, environmental. And so even in your projects within organizations and even churches and just programs, anything that you're doing, there's some sort of safety or environmental element in there. And so, yes, workplace safety protocols, preservation, prevention, I love those. Thank you so much for those. And so, we'd look at environmental health and safety. So any form of that, HSE, I've been at one of my jobs, I was the safety, health, and environmental manager. So they would just call me she. People would just walk up to me, hi, she. My name wasn't Stacy anymore. It wasn't Eustacia. It was just she. So HSE, EHS, whatever it is. But a management system is a framework and it integrates environmental and social. So social is now become a part also heavily in environmental health and safety. And I've been working on a lot of social risk management systems. And I'll talk a little bit about that. In business processes. And so management systems and EHS, they set out actions and procedures that can be implemented concurrently with your project management procedures. And that's what we really want to highlight, that these things aren't opposite, that they don't have to buck all the time, that they can actually work together, and we should work towards integrating them. And so from a HSC standpoint, when you're building a EHS management, and this may look like a lot, safety and environmental, it involves a lot of different things. And there are about 11 different people you ask. There could be 12, there could be 8, but most of them involve one, leadership and stewardship. That's very important. We start with that because if your talk isn't bought in and driving it, then there is an issue. All right. So you have to have leadership, and then you have to have stewardship. Your staff, it has to be a culture. They have to be stewards of it. They have to also be vested in it, have bought in, and that they're driving it. And then there's risk management is very important. Competence, awareness, and responsibility. So that's where you have your learning and your training. People like Simmone, those are very big on that training and making sure there's awareness. Asset and operational integrity is very important. Safe work systems at work. Incident management, of course, if you're going to have a safety and environmental system, you have to have a way of recording incidents that may happen and tracking them, and then looking at corrective action so that they don't happen again, etc. Emergency response is a big one. So anywhere you work, any building you work in should have an emergency response plan. Should have, especially if you're in the Bahamas, that may be an if, but especially if you're in the United States, it's a requirement, right? So you need to know what's going to happen if an accident or an emergency happens, a fire, anything that can happen in the building or on the site. And then then you have to have, some kind of hygiene management. And then contractor safety management is also a big one that often gets overlooked, because persons coming into your site, or even visitors and people that are working there, they're not familiar with your operation, and they're not necessarily familiar with how you do things. So you have to make sure that you're watching them, that you're managing them properly so that they can fit into your safety and environmental plan, and that they are safe on your compound. And then of course you have environmental management, and we have assurance, performance, and improvement, which we'll look at closely when we talk about the plan, do, check, act, etc. Right, so that's a lot to take in, but that's the basics of environmental health and safety management. And that's why they have persons like me who are the professionals, because we spend a lot of time studying these things. So my project manager time. So when you think about, project management, so like I said, I'm a health and safety manager. I'm not a project manager per se, but I do manage projects in environmental health and safety. I'm not certified PM, but I've worked on a lot of projects. So for you guys, what are your project management things that come to mind, and keywords that you look at, and things that come up when you look at project management? And we'll see if we have some of those same words that come up, because now that we've looked at EHS, we'll look at project management, and then we'll look to see how and where they overlap. So start putting some things in the chat with project management. What are some of the things that you look at? Or you could raise your hands. Organization and people and tasks, yes, very good. That's very important. And that, comes over in EHS too, because we're trying to protect those same people, right? And tasks, we have tasks also, very good. Any other ones for project management? Implementing systems. So implementing systems. And remember, we just talked about systems in environmental health and safety. So you already see some synergies already when we're talking about them, right? So this is kind of wordplay on both. So project management, there's controls, and we'll come to that. Time and cost. Big on cost, right? Big on time, making sure projects come on time and under budget. On processes, monitoring and process control, very good. Thank you, Dane. Dane from Turks and Caicos in the house. Thank you so much for joining us. And your scope and construction. So there's a lot with project management also. And so with project management, you see this wheel also. And so there's, you design, you develop, you implement, monitor, evaluate, analyze. Basic. That's just the basic, but they're different, ways of looking at this, etc. But that's kind of what you do. And it's kind of similar to where, and remember I asked, where would you put EHS? Where would EHS, become integrated? And it is something that we want to look at from even the design stage. In the development stage, you still have to look at EHS. In the implementation stage, you still have to look at EHS. In the monitoring stage, evaluation and analyzation. Kevin, you have your hands up?
I just wanted to, I think I put in a chat group. I think in project management, we often talk about the organizational assets, which would include all your processes and procedures, which, as you mentioned, is a terminology that comes from project management. Mm-hmm. I think if we translate that to the EH&S world, a lot of your safety management systems and your environmental management systems, your philosophies and all those bits, how we're going to run our projects and even handle our business, all that is where it kind of starts. And that, of course, is going to shape the actual actions when you start projects. I work with companies, for example, that they have a very well-developed safety culture, EH&S culture. And so they will have within their project management practices and procedures spaces to consider when you talk about safety, health, or environment at the very beginning, and then working straight through to the life of the project.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to bring out, that's kind of it sits everywhere. So what happens when you don't integrate? What are you missing out on? So, and that's the thing, there's missed opportunities. That's what's really happened. You're missing the opportunity to do more, to do greater good. You're missing the opportunity to, if you're not considering environment, not just not harming the environment, but you're missing opportunities to actually benefit to the environment, because now we're looking at, what can I do that will help preserve this environment even more? What can I do to add to it, to reduce our, ecological footprint, to go greener in this project, etc. And so we want to make sure that we're not missing opportunities. So the consequences are sometimes you can have higher costs, and that's direct and indirect costs. And those costs can come from, anybody ever had an accident on a project site? It can be very costly, right? If you have an accident, not just with someone getting injured, but if you're damaging assets, if you're losing things, if you have to stop production because you have to investigate an accident or shut down the site, it runs into higher costs, but also overrun on schedule, right? So your time could be affected. Sometimes there's reduced quality, because we know quality and safety and environment, those are connected, right? And so if you're not checking on safety, chances are your quality is probably going to be impaired also, and then lower productivity, and definitely your stakeholders aren't going to be happy. And who are your stakeholders? So you have employees, you have investors, if they have bad publicity about the project that they're backing, etc., or some issues are happening, they're not going to be very happy, right? So there can be dissatisfaction there. So there are a lot of consequences if you don't integrate, especially at an earlier stage, right? So when you try to integrate sometimes in the projects later on, you have to redo a lot of things. So sometimes when people bring me in projects at the latter end and I start making suggestions, they're like, oh my gosh, it's going to cost so much. I was like, yeah, that's why you should have brought me in earlier when you were designing or at the beginning, so we could discuss these things. So now it doesn't cost more or take longer. So there are consequences, real consequences, for not looking at environmental health and safety issues in your project at the beginning and throughout, and including them in what you're doing. So let's look at some of the synergies, like I mentioned, between EHS and project management. And we already saw some of them before, right? So the basic synergy are, we kind of all want the same thing, all right? We do want the same thing. We want the project to be successful. People think environmental health and safety managers are there to impede the process and we don't want it to finish or whatever, but that's not what it is. We want success, and our success is making sure nobody gets injured, there are no accidents, etc. A lot of project managers, their success may be rated or ranked or, by something else, by coming in under budget, on time, etc. But we both want success. So that's a similarity already. Another thing is plan, do, check, act. And I'm big on this, systems. I'm a big systems person. Both of them work on the systems concept. And that's why it's a part of my logo for my company, because I'm big on systems. The plan, do, check, act are both ingrained in your environmental management systems and your project management system. So you plan the work, that's your design and analyze phase. You do the work, right? And then you check it, you evaluate, etc. And then you act on it. And you kind of keep going around for continuous improvement. Sometimes with project management, it doesn't go around as much because EHS, but we're always continuously improving. And so it's very important. Both of them are systems based. Thank you, Kevin. All right. Both of them also engage, with stakeholders and involve stakeholder management. You have to make sure that all your stakeholders are identified, that you analyze them, that you plan for them, and that you engage your stakeholders on the EHS side and on the project management side. And most of the times they have the same stakeholders. Your customers may be a little different, or your vendors, etc. But managing your stakeholders, is very, very important. And so stakeholder management is also common for both of the in both areas. And these are some of your stakeholders that we talked about. So suppliers, lenders, employers, the public is a big stakeholder. And the government is also a stakeholder that you have to manage, your directors and your shareholders, etc. So making sure that all your stakeholders are on both sides are integrated into a common system and both being managed and all being managed is very important. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about EHS risk management. So when we're talking about risk assessments, risk is a big thing, and that's one of the reasons why I'm wearing my bow tie, and it'll come in, and it's a little cricket, sorry. But risk is a big thing, right? So when we talk about risk, both of them manage, and that's another similarity between both of them. They're all about risk management, but your risk may be looked at a little differently. So when we look at risk assessments, right, we're looking at loss, preventing loss in the environmental side or engineering, et cetera. There's a lot of things that come to mind. But for me, I like to look at risk, project strategic planning and risk management in steps. And we do this in EHS, and you could do this in project management. But one of the best ways to do it is to look at all the project areas and activities that you have for your project, and then look at your risks that you have, and then categorize them, ranking them like low, medium, high, etc., and choose your top ones, and then plan and make assessments to control those risks, right? That's kind of, in a nutshell, what you do and how you make sure EHS risks are addressed in your project management cycle. And so risk management, you guys have looked at this before, I'm sure. You've done a lot of these. So looking at risk identification, the description of the risk, the categories, the likelihood, doing the analysis, looking at mitigation and how do you reduce that risk, what are the priorities of the risk, and who are the owners of that risk, and then monitoring the status of those risks after you actually apply the mitigation and the control measures to them. And so sometimes you have a risk matrix that you come up with, and you measure from negligible to high, very likely. And so you can then start to look at where on the risk matrix that your different risks actually fall. And you have different risk, from some may be environmental risk, some may be just regular project risk, and you could see some things on there aren't necessarily environmentally related, but some of them may be related to environmental health and safety, maybe related to other means and other aspects of the project. But you always want to make sure you incorporate your risk and you do proper risk assessments. I think this is one of the areas that a lot of projects fall short on, and not paying enough attention to risk management. And so it's very important to look at your risk. So this is where we get into the bow tie and why I'm wearing a bow tie. So when I worked for Heineken, which is one of my many, many jobs, so my resume is like a million pages long, and I worked at Heineken CBL for a bit. And this is when I was introduced to bow ties, and we had a bow tie software app, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to tech tools and technology also. And I thought I'm totally geeked out on it because I love the concept and I love looking at it from this way. Plus I get to wear cool bow ties when I talk about it or do a training on it, and it's really fun. And when you get it, it makes it so much easier and it comes so natural, and then it's not as hard doing other bow ties. And then with the software, once it's done, it's already in there. So it's not like you have to do a bow tie like all the time, but you do the initial work, especially most of our environmental health and safety managers and professionals do the upfront work. So it's not necessarily our project managers or people on the team that are doing it, but it's good to understand the theory behind it so that you are able to do something in case there was a risk that came up or a top event that came up that didn't get flagged. You are able to actually go through the process. So when you look at a bow tie risk management, this is what happens. And we'll go into this, hopefully, let me look at if we have time, later on, we'll go more into depth and actually go through making some of the bow ties with an example. And then you'll get a chance to look at it also in our breakout sessions. Hopefully you have enough time for that at the end, bearing that we have no more, that we don't have any more technological issues going up. So the basics of the bow tie is you have a top event, that hazard that happens, like a fire, an explosion, or a data crash or something. And then those are your threats on one side. And what can you put in here, your controls, to prevent that threat from happening? And then on the other side is, if that does happen, if you do have a fire, if you do have a data crash, what are the consequences of that? And so if you want to reduce those consequences or eliminate those consequences, what barriers and recovery measures can you put in place so those consequences aren't as severe or don't take place? So that's in a nutshell what bow ties are about. They're very, very cool, and they look really neat. And I get to steal my dad's bow ties too. But we'll go more into depth with that later with the bow tie risk assessment. And so those controls that you put in place, like I mentioned, the controls here, recovery measures and preventative controls are really based on the hierarchy of controls. And this is my second favorite symbol, and that's why also it's a part of my logo for my company. It's in the center there, is the hierarchy of controls. Because a lot of times, if I ask you for control, how do you control a risk or a hazard, people will go straight to PPE. You just throw PPE at everything. Put on a hard hat, fall arrest, put on some safety shoes, and that solves the problem. But when you look at a hierarchy of control, PPE is actually the lowest form of control. It's the least effective control. And unfortunately, a lot of times that's where people go first to try and control hazards. But the first and the most effective form of control is actually elimination. How do you or can you actually remove that item from being a hazard in the first place? Because if there is no hazard, you don't have an issue. So can you eliminate, first of all, this hazard? If you can't eliminate it, okay, can I substitute that hazard for something that's less hazardous, that won't cause a problem? Use a different chemical that's not going to blow up in our face? Can I, substitute for a better data security, program or something that will cost, that will increase the control? That's where you look again. Don't go straight to PPE. And then there's engineering controls. So can you form a barrier, actually put in physical structures to isolate people from the hazard, right? Lock it out or put it in a box or put, just keep it away from persons. You can engineer controls around these hazards. And then you also have administrative controls. And these are your policies, procedures, the way people work, and training them and, letting them know how to better equip themselves to protect themselves from this control. And then you have PPE. So I always like to use an example here is with, this came big with COVID, right? Big with COVID in these hierarchy controls. PPE, even though it was very important in protecting, it was not the most effective, right? People had PPE on and were still getting sick, et cetera, because we couldn't eliminate it, right? We couldn't eliminate it. We couldn't do that because we couldn't really substitute it, but there were engineering controls, isolating people, keeping them away from, hazards. Then we got a lot of policies and procedures, a lot of laws telling us what to do and what not to do. And then we also had the PPE. So always remember your hierarchy controls and think to yourself, am I using the most effective form of control to make sure that this hazard is, dealt with in the proper way? All right. So keep that in your mind when we're going through this. So overcoming challenges in integrating EHS and PM. And there's going to be issues. Anytime you try to, integrate two sets of people who are used to working almost sometimes in different ways, there are going to be issues, especially if there are conflicts with levels into where the EHS and the project manager fall in the company. A lot of times EHS, where it should be, sometimes it's in HR, or it reports directly to the CEO, or it's separate and apart. And then the project manager reports on the technical side to someone else, et cetera. And then sometimes you have the project manager, then you have an EHS specialist, that reports to the project manager. And that helps sometimes that helps, and sometimes that's a problem because now that's their boss, right? So if you're EHS and you're reporting to the project manager, how are you really going? I always talk about speaking truth to power, especially as an environmental health and safety professional, and whose decision trumps who, right? As an EHS person, as a safety person, on most job sites, I have the power to shut down that site. If I go on a site and I see something that's unsafe, that's causing a problem, I can shut down the site. If I'm reporting to the project manager and he's my boss and he's like, no, you can't shut down the site, we gonna have a problem, right? So that's one of the challenges. So this is something that I always, and usually I cue my song here, and I don't think I put it in there, but I usually start cueing my song. Whoop, there it is. Y'all know the song. Whoop. Nobody as old as me. Y'all don't know that song? Tag team back again. Whoop. There, I see some nods. Yes. Whoop. There it is. So you want to make sure that you look at what are some of the obstacles so that you can plan to overcome them. So you have a wish at this point. You wish that EHS and PM project management could integrate, but that's just a wish because you don't have any plan to overcome your obstacles. The outcome is you want them to be integrated. So what are some of the obstacles that present themselves? And then you need to make a plan. How am I going to overcome that obstacle? What am I going to do to make sure that if this pops up while I'm trying to do this integration, that I can successfully negate this or reduce this obstacle so that we could keep it moving towards integration. And so that's my theme song when I'm working on plans is Whoop, there it is. So I forgot to put the song in here there. So some of the challenges that you will anticipate and that's going to be there is knowledge gaps. There's going to be knowledge gaps because a lot of times, sometimes your project management is not as knowledgeable with environmental health and safety, right? They don't understand the theories and some of the tools and some of the things that we do and why we do it. So you need to be able to bridge those knowledge gaps, trainings, awareness. And then on the EHS side, we have knowledge gaps because I may not understand some of the things in project management and why he is so, why is this so important to them and how they do things and why what I'm trying to suggest as an environmental health and safety person is not going to work in his project management, scope or scheme or system. And so bridging those knowledge gaps so that we can work better together is very important. A big one, and this should have been number one, is lack of support from the leadership. Leadership must drive this. They must say, hey, we want EHS and project management to work together. We want y'all to, don't come to us bickering and battling. We support this integration. We understand that this is important. And so they need to actually drive this. And then communication, of course. The teams must communicate. This is going to be daily, your tail board meetings in the morning, your tool board meetings, your whenever in the afternoons, at least weekly briefings to see where we are with our EHS priorities, with our risk, et cetera, and with project timelines, making sure that they're incorporated and they're working together. And then a system that supports both this integration. And so we'll talk a little bit about that with tools and resources. You should have some tools and resources that's going to help support this. Because if safety is working on one system and PM project management are working on a different system that don't talk to each other, that don't see each other, they don't share information, they don't share stats, they don't, timelines, and they're not able to share that information, it's going to be a problem with helping with that integration. And I've worked in companies where I've seen it work well. And we'll talk about some of those softwares where the software for EHS and project management, they're integrated. So I can look on the project management software and I can see where they are in the timeline and I can see, what's going on, et cetera. And one of the big ones is pressure and time crunches, right? And how many of you, show of hands, how many of you, that's the big thing, right? Pressure, time. Like, I don't have time for this to talk to EHS people. I have a project deadline. I really get no time for all of this. It's going to take too much time. But showing that it's actually going to save you time if you do incorporate it and making time. So scheduling. So there are lots of others. And I don't know if I missed that. Anyone else can think of any other obstacles that may pop up or that you have experienced when trying to look at environmental health and safety issues as a project manager or vice versa? You can just pop them in the chat and I'll read them when we get through because we still have a lot to do. And so we talked about these. So overcoming these obstacles, like we said, making sure there's support and backing, that there's clear objectives between both and what we want. The lines of communications are there. Joint meetings, like I said, capacity building and tools and systems are actually shared. All right, so what are some of those tools and technologies for EHS and project management integration? There's so much out there and everything is really high tech nowadays, right? The cloud, etc. I just actually messaged one of my friends I sent them the link for it and she was saying how someone, they went off and to do a course in environmental and all they're talking about is artificial intelligence in the course. And, and for older people or persons who are not necessarily tech savvy, that could be something that throws you off a little bit, right? But we had, I think the last meetup last month, we had Keisha that was talking about AI, and luckily I had started to tap into using ChatGPT and AI for some of my things because I work for myself, right? I'm solo, but now I have a ChatGPT assistant who helps with a lot of things, and it's made my life so much easier. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. But this is where I get to geek out and talk about my bow tie and go more into the bow tie risk management. So if there's nothing you walk away with tonight, you will walk away with a better appreciation of the bow tie risk assessment. And I promise you, every time you see a bow tie or you look at a bow tie, you will think of this and you will think of me. I hope. All right. So with the bow ties, this is kind of what the bow tie looks like and why it's called a bow tie, because it kind of looks like a bow tie. And it's a risk evaluation method that can be used to analyze and demonstrate causal relationships in high risk scenarios. You have high risk and lower risk. And we like to use it for high risk scenarios because those are the ones that could potentially cause the most damage and the most danger. And we're going to use it with a simple example that everybody actually takes part in every day, a high risk scenario. All right. So in the center, you have your top event, which is related to your hazard. And then on the other side, like I mentioned, you have your threats over here. And then you have your barriers, and we'll talk about these escalation factors. These are the controls to prevent the accident, and then controls to minimize the impacts and the consequences. All right. So everybody ready to geek out with me with the bow ties? I would ask y'all to go and grab a bow tie, but that's okay. We'll come back to that. So as I mentioned, your hazard is something in or around a part of your organization which has the potential to cause damage. Okay, that's your hazard. So it has the potential to cause damage. It hasn't happened yet, but it has the potential. And that's a lot of things, right? Anybody, what has the potential, even in part of your organization or even in your home, you know, there are hazards in your home, trip hazards, fire hazard. Your stove is probably one of the most hazardous things there. Bleach, I always talk about bleach. Bleach is probably the most hazardous thing, chemical in your house, and everybody got bleach in their house. It could potentially cause a lot of damage. If you mix it with the wrong thing, if your dog gets into it, like my dog did, you know, if a kid gets into it, it has the potential to cause damage, but it hasn't yet. But a top event happens when you lose control over that hazard, like that bleach bottle, right? You leave that open, you lost control over it. You have it's all over the place. Now it becomes an event. You have a chemical spill, right, in your house. You don't think of it as a chemical spill, but that's what it is. So these are some examples. So in your facility, an explosive material is in your facility, and the top event is the explosive material is ignited. All right. Two other examples, working at heights. And the potential event is, top event is what? The person falls from height. And then, of course, and this is the one that we're going to be using in our example, driving a car. And how many of you drive a car every day? Show of hands. No lie. It is a high risk event. It is a hazard. It is a hazard, especially if you drive in the Bahamas. And I'm going to call the next country we're going to talk about later is India, especially if you're driving in India. It's a higher risk than any other country in the world. And I will tell you about my experience in India driving cars. So we're going to use that as our example going through this assessment is driving a car, all right? So your threats are whatever will cause your top event. So what can cause you to lose control of a car? Put it in the chat. So what kind of things can cause you to lose control of your car? So you're driving your car. What kind of things can cause you or someone else to lose control of their car? Put them in the chat, or you can unmute your mic and say it. Icy roads, yeah. So, well, not in the Bahamas. We ain't got no ice on our roads. So sorry. We can't identify with you on that one. But road conditions, bad road conditions. We do have potholes that can be like that are horrible. So yes, distractions, yes, distractive driving. I love that one. Obstacles in the roads, like those potholes, oil spills, yes. Texting and driving, that's distraction, yes. All of those. All right. And y'all hit the nail right on the head. That's a lot of them. So loss of control due to attention. So you on your phone, you're putting on your makeup, your food dropped. Like me today, my niece in the back trying to get my attention and hollering. She trying to distract me from driving. I was like, no, sweet girl, we ain't doing this today. You're gonna have to cry. Intoxicated driving is also will cause you lose control of your car. And then a blowout of tire. That's something, you know, you may think, I don't have any control over that, but we'll talk about how you do have controls over that. And then slippery road conditions, the ice for you, poor unfortunate people who are in the snow and have to deal with icy roads. Or in our cases, oil spills, or in our cases, potholes can cause you lose control of your car. Lack of road signing functioning. Definitely, Danielle. All right. So those are your threats. All right. Infrastructure, definitely. And now on the other side, remember, so that's one side of the bow tie. So this side of the bow tie, your consequences. Consequences are the results from the top event. So if you do lose control of your car, what can happen when you lose control of your car? So put in the chat again. So if you're driving your car and you lose control of your car, what can happen to the car and to you? What are some of the possibilities, as unfortunate as they can be? waiting for some to go inside the chat. The crash into someone else, unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, death, yes. You can injure someone else, yes. Pedestrian damage, yes. You can damage the car. Death, yes. That's we see that a lot, and those are the consequences. Those are the things we're trying to prevent. Also, trauma, yeah. Nothing can happen, but you could just be traumatized. Like just shook, get whiplash or something, and can't drive again. So that is definitely some. So let's look at some of these consequences. So there they are. So crash into another car or a motionless object, driver impacts, internal, of car. So your airbag being released and stuff like that. Crash into deep water results in confined space. You didn't even think about that, right? So you can go over a bridge into water, or your vehicle can actually roll over, right? And that happened to my car. My brother had a rollover in my car. So those are your consequences. So now we're going to be looking at the barriers. So the basics of it, the control and recovery barriers. So barriers appear on both sides. Remember, there are barriers that prevent so there are some barriers that interrupt the scenario, stop the threats from happening. So you put those as control barriers on one side. And then there's some barriers that happen on the consequences side so that you don't have those consequences or it doesn't escalate. And so get sued, I like that. See, that's very technical. You could get sued is correct. So here is one example for the intoxicating driver. So how do you stop intoxicating driving, right? And this is from a standpoint of car driven for companies, right? So you have a company car rollout. So here you could agree on a designated driver. That's a control barrier. So if you're going to go out and you're going to be drinking, have a designated driver, right? Breath alcohol ignition interlock device. This was very cool. We had a few of our Heineken companies that had tried this out, and in some other companies where if you actually go to drive your car and there's a device on there and you breathe into it, if your breath alcohol level is too high, the car would not start. It would not even start. You can't even start the car because it detects that you are intoxicated, so it locks you out of driving the car. And so that is a barrier. And then having periodic medical examination, professional drivers, making sure that they're fit to drive, making sure that they're not, have alcoholism and those kind of things. And that can come from, on the HR side, especially, et cetera, right? So those are your barriers. So again, this is where the hierarchy of control comes in. My little triangle, upside down triangle. You want to make sure you're implementing controls that are the highest and the most effective controls when you're implementing your barriers. That's where you decide where you're going to put your barriers, because you don't just want to throw PP, like I said, at it. You don't just want to put out, okay, this is the policy, this is what you have to do. A lot of people, some of them ain't listening to the policy, they're not going to read it, they're not going to follow it, a lot of them. So then you have to sometimes engineer control, and that's where that breath analyzer come out. You can't even start the car without actually when you breathe and it finds out that you're actually intoxicated. And then substitution, right? You can make sure that you have a designated driver. So it's not a hazard, you replace the person, so you take out the hazard, and then you could just eliminate the driver. Eliminate the hazard. Be like me, don't drink, just don't drink. So you can't get drunk and drive. So you eliminate the hazard right away. In a way, I getting fine with no DUI because it's a life from the pits of hell because I don't drink. Right? So I don't eliminate that hazard. That's not a concern for me. I'm not getting drunk. I'm not getting behind the wheel of a car and crashing. That part of the hazard is eliminated. So you want to make sure that your barriers are effective and the controls that you put in place are actually those that are actually going to work. All right. Everybody following? Everybody okay? It's not too much. It's not too, y'all good stuff. You could see how it can work. That's why I wanted to use something that's simple that everybody does. And then you have escalation factors, and that's where it could get more complicated. So escalation factors and barriers is anything that will make a barrier fail can describe as an escalation factor. So you may put a barrier in, but that also may fail. So now you have to put in a barrier to protect the barrier from the barrier. You get it? So it's like stacking, right? And we'll talk about why that's important. So you have like the seatbelt, right? So here you have wearing a seatbelt can stop. So driver impact. So on the consequences side, losing control. So you have your airbag can be released. Airbag will stop you from impacting or going through the windshield or whatever, and wearing a seatbelt. But some people, they forget to wear their seatbelt, right? That's an escalation factor. So what do you do to make sure that they don't forget to wear their seatbelt? Now you have a seatbelt awareness campaign, you have fines implemented, etc. You have, cars, you have that beep, 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 beep in the seatbelt. The car can't start without you having the seatbelt on. So you have a barrier in place just in case they overcome or overlook that barrier and get through, because barriers will fail. Some of them can fail, and that's why we look at the Swiss cheese model. So the more barriers you put in place, the less chances you have for that hazard to become a loss. And people, you've seen the Swiss cheese model before, right? So you have organizational influences, unsafe supervision, preconditions of unsafe acts and other unsafe acts. But the more, it's going to be hard for them to line up to become a loss. But if you put more barriers in place to prevent that from happening, then you can have a better chance of success. So the more barriers, the better, we like to say. So this is a simplified version of what that, and I'm sorry it's not too clear. I screenshot it from a video. But this is like a simplified bow tie for driving a car. So again, remember, we had our top event in the middle here. So we had bad weather, visibility, tire driver, no speed limit, drinking, all that kind of stuff. So making sure your car is maintained, that you have proper headlights, that you obey the speed limit. If you drink coffee, make sure you drink coffee and you're not tired as a driver. And then on these top events, to prevent the consequences from injury and damage, your airbags help, your seatbelts help, crash barrels and guardrails help you from going over the edge, etc. So these are reinforcement barriers. This is a simplified version. Now this is the big boy. This is the big boy bow tie. I can't wear this bow tie because that bow tie is just a little bit too big. That's bigger than my bow tie I have on now. But this is what a real bow tie would look like. And I know it's too small. Don't hurt your eye trying to figure it out. It's too much going on in there. But that's how, I wouldn't say complicated, but that's how many layers there are. That's how many things you can actually do to prevent this from happening. This many things you need to think about or look at, or you could think about and look at in order to prevent some of these threats and consequences. For your tire blowouts, for a tire blowout, for example, making sure your tire pressure is checked, making sure that you have defensive driving, making sure that you check your tires, that you change them when they need to be changed, etc. So there are things that you can do to prevent these things, because we believe, especially me as a safety person, that all accidents, basically just all accidents, are preventable. That's why we talk about 0 injuries and 0 accidents, and then all that. So the bow ties can get very complicated. Thankfully, there are softwares like Bowe server software that can do this for you, or people like me have already done the work for you. So you just have to go in there and make sure that, do I have these barriers in place? Do I have these checks in my company as an HR professional? Do I have these policies in our driver safety program, in our driver? You have a fleet. How many of you have fleets in your company and you drive a company car, or you have company cars? Are you implementing these safety procedures to make sure that you reduce, accidents in your company car? Are you implementing these checks? Is this a part of your program, your defense? Do you have defensive driving program if you have a fleet at your company, truckers, etc.? These are things some people don't necessarily think about. And for my people, I know some of y'all are in the States and you might, how do they not have these things? I should have prefixed this, like in the Bahamas, we're very young when it comes to safety. We don't have proper occupational health and safety laws and regulations. Kevin mentioned we are part of the Bahamas Association of Safety Professionals. We're just now trying to form and agitate and push the government so that we can have proper laws and to protect our employees and protect our employers, especially also, and to make sure our employers are actually doing what they need to do to keep workers safe. And that's a big problem in the Bahamas. You guys in the States and other countries, you have OSHA, and OSHA always on your back, right? And you have your OSHA laws. We don't have those things. So we use OSHA sometimes. We use NIOSH in other countries. And so when I get to work for companies like Heineken and international companies, it's a breath of fresh air, because they have these standards. They're used to operating in countries with proper laws. And it makes my job a whole lot easier because I have these frameworks and things to work, but it makes it harder to implement because most of the Bahamian workforce, they're coming from organizations or not used to being not forced, or being in a company with proper safety culture and safety regulations and rules that are following it. So I probably should have said that earlier. So when we talk about tools and software, here are some other tools and software, EHS project management tools and software. Put in the chat, what are some that you guys use? Do you all use tool software for your project management? Besides just regular Gantt charts? I want to see what people are using out there. I know we use at some of the companies some of these, that's why I put them there. Safety culture is a big one for environmental health and safety. Software for EHS. They're not, and that's one thing we're going to talk about. There are not a lot of project management tools that have environmental health and safety built into them. And so a lot of times you have to use two separate systems, one for project management and one for environmental health and safety, and hope that you can talk to each other and communicate and share information from them. But I'm interested, anyone ever used any of these EHS software or project management tools? What are you guys using on a daily basis? Some of you still using PowerPoint, Excel, and Word documents, etc. But one that I found that is really Monday, that's the name of a software, Monday. Oh, cool. Good stuff. PM Web is one that I found that has EHS module in it that's actually pretty robust, because it has all your checklists and your OSHA requirements, all those kind of things actually already built into it, but it's in project management. And so it does both of them. Click up. Okay. That's one. I really heard about that one. Yeah. So there are lots of tools and softwares out there that you can use, definitely. But they are evolving, right? And there are so many, especially EHS. They're always pitching and always trying to sell them. So many different software, and they all do the same thing. You want to make sure you have a risk, management. We talk about the different parts of the management system somewhere in there to, track incidents and accidents that people can log into and report those, your project managers, because what they don't want to have to do is send out emails and fill out a whole bunch of paperwork and that kind of stuff. And we find that when people can report incidents or accidents or near misses, which is a big one, or unsafe acts or, unsafe work hazard or something like that, it makes it easier, right, to follow up on, and you can get that information right away as a safety person. And so when you have tablets or phones, and the guys can, if you allow that on your workplace, and people can just report those, it makes it so much easier, and then you can follow up on them. And then they have, built-in checklists. So when you have to do your inspections and your observations, all that's built in while they're doing their actual rounds, they can do that there. So we're kind of moved beyond just the basic Gantt charts, and a lot of these software tools have those in there, of course, because that's important still. Rink as well, yeah, I've heard that one, right? Yeah. And then there are new ones, and then push activities and alerts, right? So when things are happening, and then tracking success of the projects, etc. So these software and these tools are very important, but it's very important, I say, when you're picking one and you're looking, and there's so many out there to choose from, look for one that integrates or has the option so that you can do your EHS and your project management at the same time, or as they're similar in nature, or they can actually speak to each other and, send information back and forth. It makes it a whole lot easier. And then last week, like I mentioned, remember how many of you were here last meetup with Keisha? I think her name was Keisha Peters, right? The AI. I see a few hands. Yeah. And that was, I loved it. I had already started to look into ChatGPT and using it for safety. And that just, it got me more into it and using it. I don't know, anybody else uses ChatGPT and has found it helpful? You could put it in your chat what your experiences are, or raise your hands. And I just love it. And you can go in there. I've used it to write SOPs, like standard operating procedures or checklists. And you just go in there, ChatGPT, give me a standard operating procedure or an emergency response plan. And it will give you a full, and you still have to edit it, right? So we had this conversation, and I actually went to 2 other webinars about ChatGPT for safety management. And, and some of the safety people are like, is it going to replace us? It can't replace it, because, we have to walk around and be on the site, but it can make your job a whole lot easier, especially for me as a safety person. And sometimes it's just 1 or 2 of us. I don't have to spend all this time taking minutes and transcribing minutes and doing, and end of month reports, etc., and agendas for meeting, like menial tasks that just waste time. I could actually spend more time now in the field and doing checks with my eyes and interacting with persons, things that a chat GPT robot can't do, right? And so I implore you, if you haven't used chat GPT, use it, but use it responsibly. Like I went on it the other day. I'm going to, and it's my African headwear, I'm going to Kenya next week, country 104, 105, 106, 107, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. And so it was a lot for me to plan. And I get overwhelmed. And so I just went in there like, ChatGPT, give me a 4-day itinerary in Kenya with safaris. And, it depends on your prompts. These are the kind of things I like. And I've been asking for these for a while. So it kind of knows the kind of things I like. And it recommends the best restaurants, the best tours, and everything. And I absolutely love it. So when we do our breakout session, if you want to use ChatGPT to help you, it's not cheating. I don't consider it cheating. Do check with your company to make sure that how they may have an AI policy as to what they allow you to use it for, etc. But I find it very helpful. It's my assistant. Like I said, I work for myself, and so it's my handy assistant, and it helps me with a whole lot of things in my day-to-day as a safety professional. And I'm sure project managers too. Have you project managers, you guys have found it very helpful also, who've been using it? I see some hands. Any examples? Anyone want to come off on mic and say how they've been using it and how it's helped them a bit? Because I think we're getting ready, almost ready to.
Hi, my name is Danielle.
Hi, Danielle.
I'm battling a sore throat, so excuse my voice. But I've used it in the same capacity. I work in clinical research and want to get into project management and like environmental health space, but I've used it like very recently for constructing like summaries or SOPs as it pertains to like pediatric health. So I feel like it's been beneficial.
Awesome. Great. Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. And welcome to the EHS space. I wish you all the best. It's a wonderful space to be in. And that's great. That's awesome. All right, so let's talk about some best practices. So definitely best practices, we talked about this earlier, making sure top management is bought into the process of the integration. We talked about communication between teams, having those team meetings, making sure there's training and capacity building that's available, training exercises. Project managers, and when you're on a project, sometimes it's hard to take people away because they want to work, right? The project managers, they don't want to waste time doing no trainings and awareness. So being able to really capture them, in the mornings for short little sessions, etc., and build capacity, or online trainings they can do after work or on their downtime can help. Number 4 is the big thing, making sure there is a budget in your project management portfolio for environmental health and safety. And I find this does either get underestimated, and I see this a lot when we get project bids for construction and those kind of things. Either they overlook it or they underestimate how much, it's going to cost to get some of these protective barriers in place, or even PPE, or put in some of the work controls, et cetera, that they have in place. But making sure there's a proper budget for environmental health and safety in your project, all right? Even on the environmental side, if you're looking for opportunities to help the environment, make sure that there's money in your budget to support, doing some cleanups, or moving towards like more sustainable or eco-friendly products in your project or your program. Because but sometimes those options are more expensive, but they're better for the environment in the long run. So making sure that you incorporate those costs up front in your budget so that it doesn't take you by surprise, or you don't end up cutting out, environmental opportunities because you don't have the money for it. All right. And then using these technologies that we're talking about, but not just implementing them. And I've been in companies where like, okay, we're rolling out a new software. This is a new software. This is what you have to use. Here are your tablets with it. And they don't train people to use it. So the tablets just sit on the desk, or they're just walking around with them on the software. We're like, nobody's logged into the software because you didn't train anyone on how to use it. They're not comfortable with it. So if you're using technology, making sure that your staff is comfortable with it, that they're trained with it. And one of my favorite parts of also, and our HR professionals on here would probably love this also, is rewards and recognition. And especially in safety and environment, making sure that you reward, good behavior and safe acts and disciplines or parts of the organization that are doing really well when it comes to safety or taking great environmental initiatives and recommending them. I always tell people, I don't like to be looked at as a safety police. I prefer to reward, and I build cultures based on that. Yes, we have to reprimand, and there are consequences at times, but you really want to celebrate. I always find that what you focus on, that's what amplifies an organization. So when you're amplifying safe behaviors and pointing out safe acts and recognizing persons who are working safely, a lot of the other persons in your organization will follow suit. And so those are very good best practices, I find. All right. If any of you have any other ones, you can feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. So let's talk about this, just one case study, because I really want to get into our breakout groups for at least 10 minutes. Now we only have 10 minutes to do it. But India. So I was in India for my 45th birthday. It was my 90th country last year, September. And I tell you no lie, every time I got into a car, I was praying to God that I would arrive to my destination safely. I had never prayed so much in my whole entire life. The roads are crazy. I don't know if anyone else has been to India. I was in Delhi, and then I did the Golden Triangle. So it was 3-hour and 4-hour drives. And these people drive horribly. I mean, they'll be coming down the freeway on the opposite side of the road. They just, because there's traffic on their side of the freeway, they will hop over to the other side of the freeway and just come speeding down. And then, I mean, it was crazy. And I would try to sleep in the cars with my driver, but I couldn't even sleep because there's incessive honking and just honking. And it was just it was nail biting. I don't know if anyone else in any other country, I don't know how it is over there in Africa. I'll see. I hope it's not as bad in Africa, in Kenya and Nigeria and those other places, but it was crazy. So when I saw these statistics, I was not surprised that they had so many road crashes. They had these horrible statistics. Unfortunately, they're a very populous country. But road crashes account for approximately 11% of the global road crashes. They're number one when it comes to population ratio and the amount of road crashes that they have had over the years. And they actually estimate that they'll need probably about $1 billion in order to reduce the accidents by half. And there's high vulnerability because there's a lot of mopeds and pedestrians and cyclists, etc. And that accounts for 54% of the fatalities and injuries in India. And so India and the World Bank, they have initiatives, and they've been going on for a couple of years to improve road safety through comprehensive environmental health and safety and project management tactics, and it has been working. They have been seeing a decrease. So my thing was if it was worse than this before, I'm glad I was never there before. But it looks at road safety management. So this where it ties in. So car crashes and looking at those controls and those barriers and those kind of programs, not at an organization or a personal level, but at a national level, making sure vehicles are inspected, that the vehicles are safer, that the roads are safer to drive on, and mobility issues, safer road users, trainings and defensive driving, and also post-crash care. So if there is a crash, how do we get to these persons faster so that they're not become fatalities? Also implementing those barriers along the roads, etc. And so they have been working, and they've gotten $250 million from the World Bank, and then their government has put money in it, and so it's been a success, and it's been working very well. And I see this all the time. The good thing is, I work on a few IDB grants for solar systems, for other projects, climate health and climate change, and all of those, any projects that you get from the World Bank, IDB, there's sustainable financing now. So everyone, if you're getting money from any of these institutions, any country, country, you have to have these environmental health and safety management systems, and they require environmental health and safety professionals. That's how I get some of my jobs here, to be on your team, to be looked at in their projects and programs. So they're mandating it. And so it's already built into a lot of these projects and programs from an international level, which is a good thing. And so countries like the Bahamas, who are not necessarily, we don't used to looking at environmental health and safety matters when we get these grants, we are now forced to take these things into consideration in order to fulfill the requirements of the loans and the grants that we have. And there are a lot of other case studies out there by companies, Johns Hopkins, Cleveland Clinic, especially after the pandemic, during the pandemic, a lot of great case studies on how environmental health and safety and looking at health and safety and project management is very important for successful things. Success of the projects. Okay, so this is where we're at now. And we only have 10 minutes. No, we don't even have 10 minutes for this. Maybe we'll just do it as a group because it's only a few of us in the group. Let's see how many people are here. But I want to give people time to talk. So there's about 15 people here. All right, so what I wanted to do is us do introductions, pick a name for your organization. That may take a little while. Discuss a scenario in the group, come up with 3 environmental health and safety opportunities related to the project, and then identify appropriate controls for those risks. Use any tools at your disposal, and then present your plan to the group. So we'll still... Philip, do you think we have time to do like 2 or like do 2? Let's just do 2. Yeah, to do 3 breakout sessions for like, let's just do 5 minutes. I know we can't get into 5 minutes, but don't worry about just choose someone to talk for you, but just talk about the scenario a little bit and just come up with 3 risks and how you can control them. Do you think we can do that, Phil?
Yeah, can.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll just do it for 5 minutes for breakout sessions, and then I'll come in. So these are the scenarios, 3 scenarios. So just 3 breakout groups are gonna have. So it'll probably be about 4 persons in each group or so, 3 to 4 persons in each group, and then I'll probably come around. So the first scenario, breakout group 1, 2, and then 3. So you can screenshot this real quick before we do the breakout sessions. So scenario 1, your telecommunications company is switching from 4G to 5G. I know they already switched. They're selling a new cellular tower, and the only suitable location is next to a school. And the second one is your church has received a grant to operate a soup kitchen, catering to 100 persons per night in the heart of a ghetto. You know, it's plagued with crime. So you think of those issues there. And then the third one is your company is implementing a sustainability program. They're switching from gasoline to electric over a 2-year period. And so we're going to talk about those 3 things. So Phil will let us know when the breakout sessions are ready. And I think it'll automatically assign you guys randomly to a group, to a session. And we'll give you 5 minutes just to talk about, so breakout, if you're in 1, that's your scenario. If you're in 2, that's a scenario, and then 3, that's a scenario. And then we'll meet back and kind of talk about it.
So are we going to have 3 breakout rooms or 2?
3. We'll do 3.
All right. Okay, I think we are just 3 in this room. Please, can anyone hear me? Hi. Hi, Simeon. I think we are,
Hey, Phil.
yeah,
I am not gonna join a group.
you're not gonna join?
No.
Oh, so I'm,
Uh-uh.
so I'm going to
You
be
on
the
your
only
own?
one. Sorry?
You wanted to do the case study, hey?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. Yeah.
Uh, oh, there's Jackie. I
Okay,
wonder
so
if she saw.
yeah. So I have Jackie
Okay, there
and
you go. All right, so you have a group.
yeah. Okay, so let's quickly do it. All
All
right, so
right.
Jackie and Jason, you're welcome to our group. All right, so let me quickly lead the session. We have 3 scenarios to look at. I think I had a screenshot. So the first one is to look at your telecommunication company is switching from 4G to 5G, which involved installing a new cellular tower, and the only stable location is near a school. So here, I think we're looking at as the safety manager or the project manager, like how are you going to manage it in terms of trying to meet the project objective and also at the same time meet the safety objective of trying to save lives and properties. So maybe we can just quickly look at only the first scenario. Okay, are we good?
Okay, so we are going to choose the first scenario and discuss it and answer the questions.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Okay.
we're looking at if you were to be the project manager, how are you going to manage such situation whereby you have to install a high risk cable close to a school? So what are you going to do? How are you going to manage the situation and ensure that you meet the project objective, and at the same time you need to also ensure that you save lives? Hi, Jackie, are you talking? I think you're mute. All right.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, I said that's a really good one.
Yeah. So how do we find the balance between safety and project objective in this situation?
Is for me or anybody to answer.
Anybody can answer, yeah. It's just a kind of a brainstorming session.
I mean, the first thing that definitely takes priority is safety.
Yeah.
And you did mention that it's near a school, right?
Yes.
So ensuring that the safety of especially the students and the faculty, ensuring that, there's no danger to the children, to parents who I'm sure will also be around while all of this is taking place. And of course, to teachers, administrators. And so definitely in putting in place, I would definitely look at the team and decide exactly what are some of the measures that we need to put in place as it relates to safety.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Thanks, Jackie. Eustacia, do you have anything to say to us? I think you're mute.
Yeah, sorry. I said not really. I was just making sure because you guys
All
are
right.
in the
Yeah.
rural area. Some of them didn't get into the groups that they were assigned to. That's fine. So because no one joined into room 1, so you're doing that one. So that's fine.
Yeah, but I think our time is almost up. But for
Yeah, it's
me,
almost up. So just talk about 1 or 2 controls that you can put in. So she identified what the major hazard is. So yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So for me, I also suggest that in such a situation, that's why we have to trying to balance safety and project management. We need the safety manager to be also part of the project initiation stage and the planning stage. That would help us to ensure that, yeah, whatever we are doing, trying to meet the project objective, we're also trying to put in place systems and measures to safeguard lives and properties. So not bringing in a safety manager at the point of project execution. It should happen at the point of project initiation and planning. So we'll take everything in all the aspects of the project in proper consideration to ensure that we do the right thing and save lives. That's just for me. All right, thank you, everyone. I think our time is almost up, so I will quickly close the breakout session so we can go back to the main room.
Okay, now everybody should be back in the next 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, it's counting down.
Yeah, we don't have much time. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we are all back.
Okay, so we're all back and we only have a couple of minutes, 3 minutes exactly to wrap up. So I'll give each group 1 minute to give their presentation. So group one can just give us some highlights. What did you come up with your risk and how you're going to control those for your tower next to the school? Who's a representative for group one? I think Phil, you?
One.
Okay.
But I can speak on behalf of our team. We identified 3 risks: sourcing the cars, kind of like a prerequisite. We'd have to have stakeholder engagement for just to install these charging stations for the cars, and then training people as well. And so for the control piece, I don't know, is that a you know, we'd probably phase in the sourcing of the cars, phase that in, start with, you know, like 5, 10, you know, and increase it over the 2-year span. Get the stakeholder buy-in and a budget to go ahead and start with the charging stations. And then I think with training, you'd have to phase that in as well and look for maybe documentation that may already exist.
Yeah, and I think you identify one of the biggest risks with that is people try to do all at once and making sure, especially in this case, that you phase it in, because that's why I put there that you have over a 2-year period. So making sure you have time and controlling the time and making sure you have proper training, because the difference between electric and gasoline cars, people don't realize there is quite a difference, even with maintenance. And if your staff is now going to be using it, you know, as a vehicle for work, there are different, you know, parameters that need to go to. So that's awesome. Great work. That was group number 3. So we'll jump to group number 2. I know Danielle, those were having a great discussion in there with their soup kitchen.
Yes. Okay. So the 3 EHS we talked about was time, the type of people that probably might be affiliated with crime that are coming to the kitchen, and then food. So whether it's running out of food or the type of food that we're going to be providing for the community. And the way we decided to mitigate these risks is we have people register. So we know that the time that they're coming, and also we know potentially like the type of food to cater to people. So we'd have any type of food restrictions for these individuals they can fill out so we can know the type of food. And then the type of people to ensure like a safe environment. We talked about probably hiring security or having police there potentially to mitigate crime. And then lastly, we talked about, having it potentially earlier in the day, which would probably be talked about in the registration. So those are the, I think, main things that we talked about. Yes.
Awesome. That's good. And that was some of the things that popped into my mind too. And then on the environmental side, if you want to look at making it greener, making sure that what are, cutlery you're using and stuff for sustainable wear, because you always want to look at when you do projects, is this an opportunity for me to do good for the environment? So how can I incorporate some green aspect and make it more sustainable? So that's something that you could, think about. And when you go through, the whole process, you'll start brainstorming and you have more time. Of course, you don't have 5 minutes. Some of these things will come up. Yeah, definitely. And then now back to group 1. So Phil, the ones who are in the main hall that we're talking about, the cellular tower.
Yeah, for group 1, we looked at the first scenario of installing a tower close to a school. First of all, Jackie suggested that we should first of all consider how to safeguard lives and properties. That should come first. And also we looked at in a project management scenario and the organizational structure, we should first of all ensure that we try to put in safety management at the initial stage of the project, not at the execution stage. So that will help us to, when we are trying to initiate the project, when we're trying to plan it, that would be at the point where we would need to bring in the safety manager to also do the proper risk assessment and ensure that we are doing the proper planning and planning of the project and the initiation of the project in order to execute it in a safe way. So that would help us to do the proper considerations and then try to plan very well on how to execute the project in a safe way. So, but bringing in a safety manager at the point of execution, when we've already started the project close to a school, that would endanger the lives and the properties of people around that place. So we looked at the structure of the project team structure and everything, bringing in a safety manager at the point of initiation. So that was to help plan the project very well so that it will happen in a safe way. Yeah. Sorry, I think you're mute, Eustacia.
Yeah, I was trying to click it off. Yes, thank you so very much. That was awesome. So thank you guys so much. I'm sorry we were a little rushed at the end. But I just wanted you guys to give you an idea of start thinking about safety in your projects. You may not think or environmental health and safety that it has anything to do with safety or environment, but I trust you, if you think about it long enough, there are so many aspects where there is possibility of integration, and there may be a lot of environmental opportunities you're overlooking, or safety, risk, and impacts from the environment that you're having. So just to wrap up and in summary, environmental health and safety and project management, we're on the same team. We want the same thing, guys. Okay, we don't have to fight. We got to work together. And it's going to help to work through those integration pains. It's going to be worth it at the end. And technology will make it easier for doing this. And practice makes perfect. Repetition deepens the impression. The more you do it, the more you pay attention to it, the more it'll become second nature almost to you. And you'll start seeing these things and hearing these things, even in little voices in your head. I hear little voices in my head, but not like that. I don't answer them. But you will start seeing these things, with the safety issues and some of the environmental opportunities. And in the end, everybody wins. Okay, we have great, successful products with 0 injuries and 0 accidents that are beneficial to the environment, and that are under budget, that are on time or under time, and then everybody's happy. All right. So if there are these are some of the resources. I use lots of resources and references in my presentation. There's a lot of information out there, so start Googling things. Internet is there. And of course, ChatGPT can help you also with things. And if you have any questions, let me know. We can put them in the chat, but we have been communicating all through. So let me know if you have any questions. And if not, this is how you can reach out to me. And if you don't want to do all the environmental and safety stuff, you can just hire me and I can come in and help you with that and walk you through the process. So if you could scan there, my QR code comes to my my e-business card, and you could save my contact information, and that's how you can find me. Safe people, safe places, safe planet. That's what the logo of my company is. And I'm very passionate about safety. I have not always been like this. I'm surprised. I am shocked at myself where I am in the safety arena, is because I didn't set out to be a safety manager. I didn't set out to be a safety professional. But my dad, when I was about a teenager, he had an occupational health and safety incident where he got sick because of the work that he was doing. And so I have firsthand knowledge as to how safety incidents and accidents can impact a family. Fortunately for me, my dad lived. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that go to jobs and do jobs that don't survive and they don't go back home to their family. And so I have learned, and so now I am an advocate for safety because I don't want that happening to other families, and I want to protect workers and I want to protect our environment. And so I'm very passionate about it because, like I said, I have firsthand knowledge as to what it can do and the impact that it can have. And so that is why I'm very passionate about this. And I hope to inspire other people to be passionate about safety, to be passionate about the environment. Yeah, and that's it. So thank you all for having me. The Bahamas Agile Professionals Project Management Community. I hope to be at more of your meetings. And I love this, even though everybody in here is not from the Bahamas, I love that we're international in this community. And it's very awesome. It's been a great night. Sorry for going over time. I could talk about this all night, but I know you guys have things to do, places to go. So that's it for me. Thank you again. So back over to you, Phil. Or if Simmone is here, back over to the host. I don't know if she's still here.
I am
Simmone is
here, still
Awesome.
here, live and direct. Can we give a virtual round of applause to our presenter tonight? What an amazing presentation. I truly enjoyed that. It was rich. You took us through tons of information, but it didn't feel heavy. I was just snapping pictures of your slides shamelessly. And I love the bow tie concept. I love that. Yeah. In actual fact, fun fact about me, that was my grandfather's nickname and his trademark. He wore a bow tie every day. And of course, you can see our last name is Bowe, so he played that. But it became a part of his uniform as a transportation professional. So I really loved that. Love the concepts. Do we have, oh, we have a question here. Do we get a copy of the presentation?
Not a copy, but she is going to send out a link to the recording with the presentation so that it can be, you can play it back, etc. So, yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much. So, Phil, we want to extend our thanks, our virtual thanks to Eustacia.
Hi, Simmone, do you have the certificates?
Oh, you wanted me to do it. Okay.
All right, yeah.
Well, in that case, no, because I actually don't have the host thing anymore because I changed devices. Yeah,
Okay.
so
Um,
it's okay. We'll move over from that.
But
But we
no,
just want
so
to extend.
let me quickly share it so we can.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Sir, thank you very much. Perfect. So on behalf of our founder and fearless leader, Andrea Pratt-Smith, and the team here, we want to say thank you very, very much for presenting on integrating environmental health and safety and project management at our virtual meetup tonight. We truly appreciate you. We appreciate the time, the preparation, your expertise, and we know that you are a resource in this space that we can call on. Thank you very, very much for that. We have a question, and this would be for you, Eustacia. How can other Bahamians, local or abroad, get involved in EHS in the Bahamas?
All right, you can just reach out to me, send me an email. We do, like I mentioned, we do have a Bahamas Association of Safety Professionals that is actually starting up. We're in the infant stages, and we can invite you to our WhatsApp group and upcoming resources, but definitely shoot me an email or WhatsApp. I'll put my information in the chat with you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And I just want to share very quickly before we go that we meet once a month You are welcome to join the community. I know we had quite a few first-timers on the call tonight. And so you are welcome to join the community. It's absolutely free of charge. And you're also able to get CEUs for your certifications by attending the meetups. So that's always great as well. And we also have a call for speakers. If you have an interest in becoming one of our monthly meetup speakers, just like Eustacia did. I hope now that she didn't put that bar too high and you all get scared off, right? But please feel free to reach out to Andrea or any other members of the team so that you can put your name in the hat and we can be here introducing you and hearing about your experiences in project management. We would love to have you. And without further ado, because we are a little over time.
So please, before we leave, can we just come on camera? Let's just take a picture.
Oh yes, for a nice photo, please. If you're able to, turn your cameras on so we can take a quick photo. And tell us when you're ready, Phil.
Almost ready. Yeah. All right, I'm ready. Go. Cheers. Nice. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to Phil. Phil, this is a great sacrifice. Phil is joining us from Nigeria.
No,
so you know it is.
Yeah.
Are you?
No, I'm from Nigeria, but I'm in the United Kingdom right now.
Okay. But that's still early in the morning for you.
No, this is around 11 p.m.
Oh, that's not so bad then.
Yeah.
I thought it would have been like 2 a.m. or something.
No, 11 p.m. in the United Kingdom.
All right, that's not so bad. But we do want to say thank you for keeping things running in the background for us. That is always a very necessary role to play, and we don't take it lightly. And we really appreciate you joining us tonight and making things run so smoothly for us with our technical needs. Thank you very, very much. And thank you to all of you for coming tonight. And we look forward to seeing you at our next meetup.
Yeah, please. And I've also shared the link for the SUA. So you can use the link to claim your 1 hour on Scrum Alliance. It's on the chat. Okay, so back to you, Simmone.
I am not seeing that link. Is it me?
Okay, let me share it again.
Yeah, because I need my point. I'm trying to get my badge. Hey, Jackie. We want to actually congratulate Jackie Roll, who's with us tonight, for achieving her Scrum Master certification.
Thank you.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
All right. Let me just... All right, so please, can you see it now?
Yes, now we can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me claim my points. All right, well, thank you again, everyone, and have a good rest of your evening.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.